I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order on March 19th, 2024, 6 o'clock in Ludlow. This is our regular meeting. Roll call by recording secretary. Our recording secretary is not here, but Judy's been kind enough to take the minutes, and I'm going to type them up. Ted,
Judy, Terry, Ryan.
Okay, opening statement by chair, not necessary. People are here that have already heard it. For considerations of any changes, additions, or removals to the agenda. Anybody got anything?
I have none.
Do you need a motion
To
approve the agenda?
approve the agenda?
Yeah.
No? Okay, never done that, yeah. Okay, approval of minutes. I want to hold off on the 22nd because Abby took those minutes and she's not here to, defend herself if we had a question about them. But we can look at the minutes from February 27th, fastest meeting in history. It was 2 minutes long. So we put 5 minutes on here.
So wait, the 22nd was,
22nd,
we're going to table.
We're going to table because Abby's not here.
Got it.
So I move to table the meeting minutes for February 22nd and also move to approve the meeting minutes for February 27th.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, moving on. Comments from citizens. Mr. Alden, do you have anything for us tonight? It's nice that you come on these days that we're just doing flood stuff. Kind of tedious, but important. Jared, do you have any comments?
Jared Jowdy, 156 Main Street. I'm just curious if I should hold my comments off to the other business section with regard to the flood hazard regulations and other regulations that we've been working on.
I'd appreciate the flood hazard ones when we're talking about that.
Yeah, okay, nothing on the flood right now.
It's up to you whether you want to share the others now or later.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Noah. We're doing comments from citizens. You got any? Okay, maybe later. We'll check with you later. All right, moving on to item number 7.
I have a comment.
Yes, Judy.
So do we have any idea when we're going to get a 5th member appointed? Has the select board said anything?
Yes, appointments are going to be made at their March meeting. At their April meeting.
Okay. Just wondering because it's been a while.
Yeah, I have no idea if anybody's put in letters or. All right, and moving on to item number 7 on our agenda, flood hazard regulations in village and town zoning. Jason is supposed to be at our meeting. Maybe he got held up somewhere. I sent everybody a copy of the Vermont model standalone. The reason why I want us to take a look at this is because this document that is in village zoning and in town zoning is 10 years old. So it needs updating, which we all figured out when we were going through village zoning, but didn't want to take the time at that time to do it because we knew it would take a while. So this document that Jason sent us is basically a standalone bylaw already vetted by the state of Vermont. And we could use it to replace our existing document in the village zoning and in the town zoning, but we still need to take a look at it. He suggested in an email to me that we could exclude the river corridor provision if we desire to, but since we are a river corridor, I'm not sure why we would want to do that. He's not here to tell me why that was a question. How do people feel about the river corridor?
Where is that, Terry?
It's page 60.
Oh, it's page
67.
River corridor. Oh, I just printed mine out separately, so it says 2.
Oh, no,
sorry. I got it.
7.
Oh,
Yeah.
actually, there is on this.
There is?
Yeah.
No, in the
It
old one.
starts at 61.
The old one has it, but the new one. He said we could skip the river corridor part. That's part C. It's on page 3. No, that's development to review for river corridor. Okay, river corridor protection is on the 2nd page, part 4. I kind of looked it over. It seemed like That definitely applies to our town. I thought we could work from the document. I was gonna put the document up there that we're currently looking at, the new zoning. I'm able to share my screen. Rebecca? Okay. It says host disabled, participant screen sharing.
So this is the model standalone bylaw, is that what we're looking at?
Yeah,
Okay.
from the state of Vermont.
I
And it is,
just want to make sure I'm on the right thing.
and it's from 2022, so it's 8 years older.
I mean, are we looking at the model one?
We're looking at the model. Yeah, to replace the old one.
Okay.
The old one is 10 pages long, this one is 16 pages long, and I'm talking about before we get to the glossary. So this one is longer and meatier and includes a lot more than ours does. And I noticed they cleaned up a lot of the language too. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen so we can have it on the big board. Okay. And the other thing I want to tell you, he said we should take a look at is adding back in our local flood hazard area. And I noticed that's just a chart. Our local flood hazard one, it's just a chart in the old one on page 62. No, page 63 in the old one. That's a local flood hazard area, but you'll see as we go through this that everything in that chart is pretty much part of the first chart you see at the bottom of the first page here. It's the summary table. And then the other comment he had was, do we want to change existing flood provisions to the new model, which increases the highest flood stage level from 1 foot to 2 feet? Right now it's at one foot in our old language, and this new one he just sent us, he increases it to 2 feet. And this last flood definitely went over 1 foot.
Okay, I gotta slow down for a second.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing minutes and trying to follow along, so
Yeah.
help me here. We are on 62, right?
We are on,
And then,
we're just looking, I'm just telling you what he said before we look at the document.
okay,
Okay, I'm gonna suggest that we go through the whole document.
I would love to go.
Yeah, since it's gonna be part of, what we're agreeing to put in there.
Right, okay, so we're really looking at this one.
Yeah, but I'm just sharing with you the 3 concerns that Jason had, because maybe he's here now and I don't see him in his Zoom. The 3 concerns that he had that we might take a look at, but already the increasing from 1 foot to 2 feet, I think is a given because the storm was over 1 foot. And I know the trailers across from Black River High School, or the new school, they've all increased their height 2 feet up to accommodate from the last storm. After Irene, they've jacked their trailers up 1 foot, but they were told to bring them up 2 feet after this last storm. Okay, so let's go through this flood hazard and green corridor bylaw. Do you want to do it by reading aloud and taking turns?
So we're in the model standalone, correct?
Yeah, the model standalone.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yep, we are. I think we can skip the first part because it's all about the chapters in the Vermont standards that it's referring to. And if you'll see in the old one, it also refers to the same chapters. Okay, I'll start. I'll do the first page, if it's okay with that. Purpose: to implement the goals, policies, and recommendations in the municipal plan to protect health, safety, and welfare of the public, minimize and prevent the loss of life and property, the disruption of commerce, the impairment of the tax base, and the extraordinary public expenditures and demands on public services that result from flooding, related inundation and erosion hazards. B, support equitable well-being for the entire community. D, ensure that development in our community protects floodplain and river corridor functions and avoids and reduces damage from flooding and erosion. E, manage all flood hazard areas pursuant to those Vermont standards. And make the town of Ludlow, its citizens and businesses eligible for federal flood insurance, federal disaster recovery funds, and hazard mitigation funds as may be available.
Very, very similar to section 620.
Similar, but I noticed it's got stronger language, like part of 620 says reasonable, and some of that stuff is,
Yep.
can be what somebody thinks is reasonable, may not be what someone else thinks is reasonable. So I'm glad they took that kind of ambiguous language out of it.
Yep.
Okay, so in the summary table, developmental review and hazard areas, we're looking at the permitted, the conditional uses, the permitted uses, the prohibited, the exempted, and the state permit required. So as far as and it separates into three sections: river corridor, the flood hazard areas, and the floodway. The old regs
It's just flood zone.
have just flood zone, and then on the next table, they called special flood hazard areas,
Okay.
which I think is just called flood hazard areas in this chart. And there's not any, and this chart also shows you the floodway. So they basically took these two charts and turned it into one. I don't know, Ryan, do you want to be the person that checks if anything changes between the two charts? Like, if somebody can look at the old chart? Well, I don't think it matters because this is the new state standard, So for new structures, we have conditional for river corridor, flood hazard areas, and not allowed in floodway. Storage, same thing.
So new structures, the first one is conditional in flood hazard areas.
It's conditional in our new one.
Yep, and in the old document, it is prohibited. It's only conditional in special flood hazard areas.
Okay,
And I'm not sure if that's the same as, I'm assuming it's the same as flood hazard areas.
yeah, it is.
So it's conditional in the river corridor. In the current document, it's prohibited in the river corridor.
Oh, it's prohibited in the river corridor, in the old one?
Yep.
Oh, so now it's conditional
Yeah.
for a new structure to go into the river corridor. Storage, same thing here, river corridor, conditional, flood hazard areas, conditional, floodway prohibited. So that's a change.
Can I ask Jared a question?
Yeah,
Jared, when working with this, have you compared these two charts as going through the last year here?
So basically, floodway is no way. So usually things are prohibited in the floodway. The special flood hazard areas, the floodplain. So storage being conditional as opposed to prohibited in the special flood hazard area. That is still going to have to get a review from the local floodplain manager, regional floodplain manager, and still go before the DRB. It gives people a chance. Any new structure in the floodplain or special flood hazard area has to meet the requirements of being above base flood elevation by a foot currently. And we'll talk about the 2 feet
right, that's not
when
going
we get to it. So basically, you're just giving somebody the opportunity to add storage, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be able to.
right, it depends on what they have.
Do you feel in general the new regulations are more open, or they're more conditional use than in the current document? Or that's kind of what it looks.
Well, here I'm seeing permitted and conditional in one cell, and that's a little confusing. I think that should be limited to it either is or it isn't. So where do you draw the line? Say number 3, improvements to existing structures, permitted or conditional.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're supposed to pick?
Well, I don't know. That's why it's a little ambiguous here. So.
Yeah.
That's why I would prefer to see it, either or, just definitive. You
Yeah,
can.
I think so too.
You would
You can't.
like to see it either or you would like to
I'd like to
see
see
it
it definitive.
definitive.
Either or. It's either conditional or it's prohibited.
Got it.
Or-
No, I meant like
Or it's permitted.
conditional or permitted.
Who makes that decision? Ultimately, the floodplain manager and DRB. So if it's conditional anyway, permitted, it's still, I don't know if it would have to go before the floodplain manager. I would assume so, because everything in a floodplain does. So even if it's permitted.
So even if it's administrative review, administrative permit. Yeah.
So administrative permit is permitted upon the zoning administrator's decision where the structure is outside of the floodway.
I noticed in the old regs, it does say non-substantial improvements are permitted, but substantial improvements are conditional. So they, talk about what size improvement you're gonna make, or elevation, or relocation, or.
Right, and that doesn't even address that issue in the new chart.
Right. So what's our board's privilege, preference?
If it's in a flood corridor, river corridor, whichever, I would think you would want it to be conditional instead of just permitted. You want somebody to look at it and see if that makes sense.
What do you
Because
think,
otherwise
Ted?
you're talking about loss of property again.
Would you think you'd go for the permitted or the commit,
I look at it both ways.
Yeah,
I think if you can look at it and it's easily permittable, that you can see on whatever maps or whatever you need to see, then permit it. Otherwise.
Okay, so then that leaves it up to the zoning
That's why I look
administrator.
at both of them as being maybe okay.
Okay, I hear that.
That's the way my logic.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
glad I asked you.
So
What do you think, Ronnie?
I'm not, I mean, right or wrong, that's just the way it feels to me. I don't know.
And later on, it talks about the zoning administrator making that decision.
Well, that's, I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
If you can make the decision, make it.
Yeah, I guess we're good with leaving it then. That's what
Don't force it into something that it doesn't need to be forced into.
Right.
Yeah.
Does anybody see any value in, saying substantial or non-substantial, or just keep it the way it is and let the zoning administrator figure it out?
Yeah, I don't know that one.
Like the old chart? Okay. Jared, do you have anything other comments?
Just
about that?
a couple of little notes. Even if something's permitted, it can still be denied, just like any other permit.
Okay.
Also, all of these substantial or non-substantial improvements still have to get reviewed by the floodplain manager.
So they don't need to be in the chart because they're just going to be reviewed anyway.
They should for educational purposes or awareness for the people to know that, there is such a thing. They just can't go ahead and make substantial improvements and then get reprimanded after the fact, which jeopardizes our standing with the National Flood Insurance Program. So I think those should stay in there.
Okay. You think we should put non-substantial and substantial into this new chart? It's not in there now? It just says improvements?
Yes,
Is that what
that's
you're
what's
saying?
required by the state, Agency of Natural Resources, FEMA, the flood insurance program. So yes, I wouldn't leave it out.
What is the board's view on that?
Yeah, if you're making substantial, I'm surprised it's not in here already, being that it's a requirement by FEMA.
Mhm.
So if you're making improvements to a property at greater than 50% of the value of the structure, that's a substantial improvement.
And where does
that would
that
have to go.
explain? Where's that explain?
Well, that's,
In the definitions, there's substantial improvement in the definitions.
Okay. So I'm going to add to that chart another row right now.
Yep. And it's going to be called substantial improvements. Sure.
Yeah. Insert row below. And do we want the same, or what do they call it in the old chart? Non-substantial, substantial.
So you're putting in two.
Yeah.
so I'll just, in the new document, substantial improvement means any repair, reconstruction, rehabilitation, addition, or other improvement of a structure after the date of adoption of this bylaw, the cost which over 3 years or over the period of a common plan of development equals or exceeds 50% of the market value of the structure before the start of construction. This term includes structures which have incurred substantial damage regardless of their actual repair work performed. So even if it's being repaired because of flood damage. So
You guys want me to include
it's
all this
defined.
language about substantial improvement that's in the old one that talks about elevation, relocation, floodproofing of existing structures? Number 3, table 5.2 on 64. Should I add that language too, to the substantial improvement part?
I mean, so I guess before we dive too deep in this is, and I wish Jason was here to answer this question, but is this current document that we're looking at to adopt, is this approved by FEMA?
Yeah, definitely. It's a state document. It's on the books right now.
But we're already,
Since it's a model standalone.
we're already making adjustments to it because,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
right? Because substantial
Should we make
improvements
any
weren't included.
adjustments to it? Maybe we shouldn't.
Maybe
Well,
we should table it until we.
I just think we're wading out of our depths here as to
Yeah.
what we're
So
I'm feeling like we
Right.
definitely are.
Yeah, I do
That's
too.
just my opinion.
I think my opinion is maybe we should just go through it and try to understand it all.
Yeah.
Write down questions and then ask Jason in our
Without
next meeting.
Jason.
We don't have to rush to do this. And I think we need to have a good understanding
Me too.
of it because it's pretty new to me, you know.
New to me.
Okay, I'll get rid of the new row.
All right, so you remove the new row.
Not quite, I'm trying to.
Okay.
Oh, no, I see. This is continuing that one. Okay.
So are we going to
Go through it.
I'm going to cross it out.
Yeah, cross it out. Okay, so just understanding improvement to existing structures, we won't do that. Small accessory structures, you get the same thing, the permitted, conditional, and rigid corridor. The permitted and flood hazard areas and prohibited in floodway. At grade parking. Replacement of water supply or septic systems. Yeah, I'm not making any changes, Ryan. That was a good call. Fill or grading resulting into no net loss of flood storage. Fill or grading resulting in a loss of flood storage. Road maintenance, road improvements, bridges and culverts, channel management.
So the channel management, that's something I just kind of started, I'm looking for. It's not, I don't find it in our existing document
So that's something new they've added.
because to me, I mean, what we're all talking about right now is, so like for Shaw's to reopen, they're gonna have to build a wall around the building as opposed to managing the channel in which the water flows,
Right.
right? So
But is channel management also, you know, people are like, dredge the river, dredge the river. Is that channel management?
I would assume it's probably a possibility. I mean, or building walls or armoring banks or building banks and armoring them where it's gonna spill over. But I mean, in here it's state, so it's a state permit or exempted and state and conditional in the floodway.
So the state weighs in on that one either way.
Yes. But I guess my question off the top of my head is, and I'll ask Jared, is because we don't have channel management in our current document, is that why that option isn't being explored for our current issues?
Are you referring to the document, the new standalone model document, or?
Yeah.
The new document 12, channel management.
Channel
I can't find that anywhere
It's
in the
number
existing document.
14 in the chart.
Oh, I'm sorry.
64.
And it is, and it's conditional.
And now it's state approved. Or denied.
Yep.
So it's probably a little bit tighter to get approved, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds like it.
Makes sense. So I just wrote, what is channel management? Was that a question we wanted to do for Jason?
Well, I think it
Well,
explains
let's
it
see if
better in
it's in
the
the
other chart because it
definitions.
says,
Yeah.
what does it say? It's channel management of the shoreline and bank stabilization, which is what Ryan was talking about.
Right.
So the channel management sounds like the river itself.
Yeah.
So
The shoreline. and the bank.
the definition of channel in the Duden document means an area that contains a continuously or periodic flowing water that is confined by banks in a stream bed.
So that's the river.
Yep.
Okay, recreational vehicles permitted open space recreation is exempted. Forestry and agriculture, state permit required. I've read further in this document that there's a whole bunch of stuff about forestry that it can't be impeded in any way. Somebody want to take over reading?
I'm writing, so you
Sure.
sure.
River corridor protection. A, purpose. River corridors provide rivers and stream channels with the space necessary to maintain or reestablish floodplain access and to reduce erosion hazards through the natural physical processes. It is the intent of this bylaw to protect public health and safety by avoiding new encroachments into river corridors and minimizing erosion-related damage to existing structures. A permit is required from the AO for all development that is located within the river corridor except as provided in section 4C.1, where river corridors and flood hazard areas overlap. The flood hazard area provisions shall also apply. B, river corridor boundaries. This article applies to river corridors in the town of Ludlow, Vermont, as published by the Agency of Natural Resources, including refinements to that data, which are hereby adopted by reference. On streams with a watershed size greater than half a square mile for which river corridors are not mapped, the standard shall apply to the area measured as 50 feet from the top of the stream bank or slope. Three, the information presented on any maps or contained in any studies adopted by reference is presumed accurate. If uncertainty exists with respect to the boundaries of the river corridor, the location of the boundary of the property shall be determined by the administrative officer. There's AO.
Oh, that's what it is.
So just AO should be
Yep,
defined prior.
under purpose.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, prior to, yeah,
I mean.
so we'll add that.
And I also wrote in, if he could, Jason, when he's here, explain to us 4B2, because I don't have a really good idea of what exactly that means. The standard shall apply to the area measured as 50 feet from the top of the stream bank or slope. 50 feet to where?
To the center of the street.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So if it's 50 feet from the center of the stream, it's considered a half acre? Is that correct?
I don't know about that.
No, well,
That
that's
depends.
what-
Usually, I think in the village, we have 25 feet to the center of the stream and 50 feet in the town to the center of the stream is the setback
Yeah,
for any river, usually.
So, and that specifies on river corridors that are not mapped.
okay, so I added administrative officer to the first place we see AO.
yeah.
Want me to continue?
Yes.
4, if the applicant disagrees with the determination made by the administrative officer or with the river corridor as mapped, the applicant has the option to either 1, hire a licensed land surveyor or registered professional engineer to stake out the river corridor boundary as mapped on the property, or provide data as needed for an A&R to update the river corridor map following the flood hazard area and river corridor protection procedure, or request a letter of determination from A&R that the proposed development meets the performance standard in the procedure. C, development review and river corridors exempted activities. The following activities do not require a permit under this section of the bylaw. A, the removal of a building or other improvement in whole or in part, so long as the ground under the adjacent removed structure remain unchanged. That's interesting. Any changes to a structure that will not change the footprint of the structure. Maintenance of existing sidewalks, roads, parking areas, stormwater drainage, bridges, culverts, and channel stabilization. functionally dependent uses that must be placed in or across rivers or in streams that are not located in a flood hazard area, and that have coverage under a stream alteration permit if required under 10 DSA Chapter 41, and the rules adopted thereunder, including the construction, removal, or repair of bridges and culverts associated, transportation and utility networks, dams, and dry hydrants. Planting projects which do not include any construction or grading, subdivision of land that does not involve or authorize development. Why would you subdivide? Activities exempt from municipal regulation and requiring a permit from A&R under Vermont Flood Hazard Area and River Corridor Rule, CVR 12-30-24, including state-owned and operated institutions and facilities. So G is all activities, not structures. Forestry operations or silvicultural forestry activities conducted in accordance with the Vermont Department of Forests and Parks, acceptable management practices for maintaining water quality on logging jobs in Vermont, or other accepted silvicultural practices as defined by the Commissioner of Forests, Parks, and Rec. Agriculture activities conducted in accordance with Vermont Agency of Agriculture, food and markets required practices prior to the construction of farm structures. The farmer shall notify the AO in writing of their proposed activity. The notice shall contain a sketch of the proposed structure, including setbacks. Public utilities are regulated under 30 VSA 248. Telecommunications facilities regulated under 30 VSA 248A. So do we want to look back at our document and see what the differences are? So that's kind of the biggest thing. I'm
just saying, even if we notice a difference, can we change it though? Because this is what's been accepted.
Sure, but I mean, but we're going through this because obviously it's a choice to either adopt this as is or amend it.
Yeah, but we already talked about if we amend it, it's not going to be approved anymore by FEMA, by the state.
The only amendments we've made are to make it more, to include FEMA regulations. So like the substantial, so that is my biggest question. Is this approved by FEMA?
Right, but
I don't know.
But we can't answer that because we don't have Jason here. So.
I'm writing down the question, so.
Yeah,
right.
Good idea. Because when we have him, we can ask him. I really wish I had reminded him because he told me he has until May to help us with this because of grant money. Probably forgot.
Two meetings.
So, well, I'll continue.
Yeah, please.
Prohibited development in the river corridor. A, new structures, fill, and development that do not meet the standards in section development standards. I'm not going to name every section. Any other development that is not exempted, permitted, or listed as conditional use, which would be cause or contribute to fluvial erosion hazards. Well, that's a new one. Permitted by administrative review. Following development activities meeting the development standards in the river corridor in section 4D1 or 2 may be permitted directly by the AO. Small accessory structures not larger than 500 square feet. Improvements to utilities along an existing right-of-way and serving a building. Replacement of on-site septic systems. Access and parking, an attached deck or patio to an existing structure that is 200 square feet or less and is located no less than 100 feet from the top of a bank, unimproved trails or native grades and soils that will be relocated as needed to accommodate channel adjustments and avoid degradation to bank stability and riparian habitat. Going on the words, I don't know. River or floodplain restoration projects that do not involve fill, structures, utilities, or other improvements, and which have written confirmation from the A&R Regional Floodplain Manager that the project is designed to meet or exceed the applicable standards in this bylaw. Conditional use review and approval by the DRB in accordance with 24 VSA 4461 is required to the assurance of a permit by the AO for any activity in the river corridor that is not exempt, prohibited, or eligible for administrative review. D, development standards within river corridor. These are the minimum standards for development in the river corridor where more than one district is involved. The most restrictive standards where more than one district is involved, the most restrictive standards shall take precedence. 1, infill development must be located no closer to the top of bank than existing primary structures with a gap that is no more than 300 feet. Downriver shadow. In addition to an existing habitable structure or an accessory structure that is adjacent to an existing structure shall be located in the shadow area directly behind and further from the channel than the existing structure, or within 50 feet to the downstream side and no closer to the top of the bank. Below ground utilities may also be placed within the same shadow dimensions of an existing below ground system. Only primary structures existing before this bylaw may be considered for shadowing other development. So, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's basically building a building behind another building that would take the brunt of the flooding if it were to happen.
That's correct. A prime example is the mill on Mill Street, the old abandoned mill. It did provide a lot of cover for Jerry Sheehan's trailer park, his mobile home park, for a few of the trailers because there's some old structures there. Once those go away.
The shadow of the building.
So they were in the shadow of the flow. So the flow went around everything. So.
All right. River corridor performance standards. Proposals that do not meet the infill or shadowing criteria in section D1 or 2 must demonstrate and the DRB must find that the proposed development will A, not be placed on land with a history of fluvial erosion, damage, or threatened by fluvial erosion, and B, not cause the river reach to depart from or further depart from the channel width, depth, meander pattern, and slope associated with the natural stream process in equilibrium conditions. Wow, okay. Not result in a need for bank armoring or stream channelization as a result of the proposed development that would increase flood elevations or velocities or alter sediment regime triggering channel adjustments and erosion in adjacent downstream locations. The DRB may request or consider additional information to determine if the proposal meets the River Corridor Performance Standard Act, including data and analysis from a consultant qualified in the elevation of river dynamics and erosion hazards, and comments provided by the DEC Regional Floodplain Manager on whether the proposal meets the River Corridor Performance Standard. 5, new paths or alterations to paths that provide access to the water for the public and promote public trust uses of the water shall not necessitate bank armoring and must be relocated when the channel adjusts towards the path. 5.
Has her hand up with a comment.
Yep.
Is it okay with everyone? When Jason is here, I would like a better explanation of this number 3 River Corridor Performance Standard so we really understand it. Because some of the terms I'm not understanding thoroughly.
We had, when we worked on this the last time in 2014, we had somebody from the state come.
Yeah,
And talk at length, and she was supposed to come back, but she never came back. And she helped us understand riparian borders and fluvial erosion.
Right, I just think that if we're going to approve this, we should really know what we're
Oh,
approving.
yeah, we're not approving tonight for sure.
So I put that in questions for Jason.
I'm really glad we're making questions for him because it'll help us go through it again with him. Anybody else want to read, or you want to have Ryan keep going?
I'm looking up what fluvial means.
Shall I-
The internet
I was
the
starting
internet
to
can't even
prepare.
tell me what it means.
Well, it's in the glossary at the end.
Okay.
There's a glossary at the end, a very necessary glossary.
Yeah.
It's okay. I didn't print it on mine though, but
I don't have the glossary.
Anyway.
I can show you.
Oh, wait, no, I do have the glossary, I think. Fluvial erosion means the erosion or scouring of riverbeds and banks during high flow conditions of a river. Fluvial erosion is most likely to occur within the river corridor.
Okay, the old definition says fluvial erosion can be catastrophic when a flood event causes a rapid adjustment of the stream channel size and/or location.
Anyway.
Ryan, we're voting for you to continue.
5, flood hazard area protection. A, purpose to protect public health and safety by avoiding cumulative increases in flood elevations, velocities, and river instability. The cumulative loss of beneficial floodplain functions and to minimize flood damage to development and services already located within this hazard zone. Lands to which this bylaw applies, flood hazard areas. This bylaw shall apply to the special flood hazard area map to the town of Ludlow, Vermont, identified in and on most current flood insurance studies and maps published by the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, the National Flood Insurance Program, as provided by the Secretary of Agency of Natural Resources pursuant to 10 VSA 753, which are hereby adopted by reference and declared to be part of this bylaw. Base flood elevations and floodway limits. Where available, base flood elevations and floodway limits provided by the NFIP and in flood insurance study and accompanying maps shall be used to administer and enforce this bylaw. So that's basically saying you have to use the flood maps no matter what, right?
Right.
The floodway as adopted by this community shall consist of the channel of a river or other water course and the adjacent land areas that shall be reserved in order to discharge the base flood without cumulatively increasing the water surface elevation more than 1 foot at any point. In the SFHA, where base flood elevations and or floodway limits have not been provided by the NFIP in the flood insurance study and accompanying maps, it is the applicant's responsibility to develop the necessary data. Where available, the applicant shall use data provided by FEMA or state or federal agencies to administer this bylaw. If the town acquires data that indicates a change in published base flood elevations, the town will, within 6 months, submit the technical or scientific data to the Vermont A&R and the NFIP map specialist. Are our flood maps changing, Jared, as a result of this flood?
Expected in 2026. 2025 and 2026.
Okay. Jurisdictional determination. The information presented on any maps or contained in any studies adopted by reference is presumed accurate. If uncertainty exists with respect to boundary, this is the same thing as before, shall be determined by the AO. Development requirements in the flood hazard areas, permits, except as provided in section 5D.2, exempted activities. A permit is required from the AO for all development that is located within the special flood hazard area. Development that requires conditional use approval or a variance from the Development Review Board under this bylaw must have such approvals prior to the issuance of a permit by the AO. All permits shall require that a permittee have all other necessary permits from state and federal agencies before the work may begin. Exempted activities. The following activities do not require a permit under this section of the bylaw. The removal of a building in whole or in part, so long the ground elevations under the adjacent removed structure remain unchanged. Routine maintenance of existing buildings. Interior improvements or repairs to existing buildings that cost less than $500. Is that, I don't think that's right. $500?
I'll look in New York.
I'll
It
look.
makes no sense. I mean,
Number, so this is, wait,
number 2.
yeah, but I want to get the whole section 5. So it's 5D, D2.
Section
2C. 5D2C.
2C.
Maintenance of roads, bridges, or stormwater drainage, stream bank stabilization, and abutment work that do not reduce the cross-sectional flow area of the river or stream channel and have coverage under a stream alteration permit if required. Planting projects which do not include any construction or grading activities in accordance with 24 VSA. Subdivision of land that does not involve or authorize development. The following activities are exempt from municipal regulation but may require a permit under state Vermont flood hazard area and river corridor rule. State-owned and operated institutions and facilities. Forestry operations and silvicultural activities conducted in accordance with Vermont Department of Forests and Parks acceptable management practices for maintaining water quality on logging jobs in Vermont, or other accepted silvicultural practices as defined by the Commissioner of Parcel Forestry. Could just say forestry. Agricultural activities conducted in accordance with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets required agricultural practices prior to the construction of farm structures. The farmer shall notify the AO in writing of proposed activity. The notice shall contain a sketch proposed structure, including setbacks, meeting community requirements. Public utilities, telecommunications are exempt. Administrative review, permitted development. The following development activities in the special flood hazard area meeting the development standards in section 5E may receive a permit from the AO without review by the DRB. So A, outside the floodway, accessory structures not greater than 500 square feet, new fill or existing associated transportation and utility networks, or to accommodate a replacement on-site septic system. If it can be demonstrated that no other practicable alternative is available, recreational vehicles or travel trailers, river and floodplain restoration projects, including dam removal that restore natural and beneficial floodplain functions and include written confirmation from the A&R floodplain manager that the project is designed to meet or exceed the applicable standards in this bylaw. Within the entire special flood hazard area, improvements or repairs from damage to structures that do not expand the existing footprint and do not meet the definition of substantial improvement or substantial damage. Building utilities at or below grade development. So example, parking areas, open fencing or posts, municipal transportation infrastructure improvements designed by the Vermont Agency of Transportation that have written confirmation from the A&R Regional Floodplain Manager that the project is designed to meet or exceed the applicable standards in this bylaw. Prohibited development, new critical facilities, new residential or non-residential structures in the floodway, storage of material or junkyards, conditional use review. In accordance with 24 VSA 4414, conditional use review and approval by the DRB is required prior to the issuance of a permit by the AO for any activity in the special flood hazard area that is not exempt, prohibited, or eligible for administrative review. Development standards within the flood hazard area. No net loss of flood storage capacity, except as needed to fill an existing basement or mitigate an existing structure. All development below the DFE, except development that is exempt under section 5D2, shall be reasonably safe from
What's the
flooding.
DFE? Has that been defined?
DFE.
Let's look. Definitions. Design flood elevation, DFA.
I just wonder if it's been defined.
It means the base flood elevation plus 2 feet.
No, I mean, it hasn't been defined in this document up until when they say it. Is that the first time it shows up? I think
I
it
think
is.
it's the first time it shows up.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so
let's-
you would want to
let's
say
define it.
design.
Wait, where was that? All development below the DFE. Let's define it. What did you say it was?
I lost my place.
Design flood elevation.
Design flood elevation.
What is it?
Design flood elevation. Okay, I defined
So you defined it. I'm not going to write it down.
yeah,
That doesn't.
I put it in the document.
So all development below the design flood elevation, except development that is exempt under section 5D2, shall be reasonably safe from flooding, designed and adequately anchored to prevent flotation, collapse, release, or lateral movement of the structure, constructed with materials resistant to flood damage, constructed by methods and practices that minimize flood damage, constructed with electrical, heating, ventilation, plumbing, and air conditioning equipment, and all other service facilities that are designed and are located so as to prevent water from entering or accumulating within the components during conditions of flooding. Adequately drained to reduce exposure to flood hazards. 3, fuel storage tanks and vents must be elevated above DFE and securely anchored. Storage tanks may be placed underground if a qualified professional certifies the installation will be anchored and protected from flood forces. Jared, does that satisfy you? I know you were talking about issues with fuel tanks and elevating them. Does number 3 on page 9 satisfy?
We changed that in the old regs. That was the only thing we changed.
Yep.
We didn't say they had to be up high anymore. We just said they had to be
Well, fuel tanks
secure.
needed to be, if they couldn't be underground, they had to be securely tied down.
But Rose also said, it used to say they had to be up high.
But 1 foot above BFE.
And then service companies would not fill them. They need a
Right.
ladder to fill them.
That's been a difficult issue for a lot of people.
Yep. So as written, does that satisfy your issues with the existing document?
That's really.
I think it exacerbates it. I think it makes it even worse if you're going to add another foot onto it. And then at the beginning of the meeting, you were thinking about adding another foot on the regular BFE. So,
So we need to talk.
so is it DFE plus 2, which is 4?
Yeah, we have to talk to Jason about that. That does exacerbate the problem, because it says it has to be elevated above the DFE.
It also says they may be placed underground if qualified professional certifies that it won't move.
BFE is BFE plus 2.
Oh, BFE plus 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, but they were saying at the beginning of the meeting, shall we consider raising our standards for BFE 1 foot above to 2 feet?
Which he
So-
said was in here.
If they decided to do that, then it would be 2 feet plus BFE, which would be 4 feet. Right. Right, so let's say it was 2 feet above BFE, and now we're taking into consideration DFE.
Yeah, so that's a question we have for sure.
Isn't it like, wouldn't it
Can't be
multiply,
serviced.
wouldn't it be like, 4 feet?
Yeah, BFE. That's what BFE plus 2.
Right. So that's what should be used moving forward, I suppose.
All right, so I've got that noted.
Anyway, yeah, fuel tanks have been a problem.
So would your suggestion be to remove the first sentence that must be elevated above DFE?
Just leave.
And-
I just wrote in the minutes, just have him explain,
Yep,
or do
Yeah.
that, we should have further discussion.
Right, because we're not changing anything.
Right, so I think this is good because we're just writing down things that we are like, what?
yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
Wonder about or disagree with or
Did you want
need further
Did you
information.
want the letters and numbers on that?
I got it, it's got, well, it's E3, yep, and I got it.
Okay.
I think maybe vents above DFE is okay, but I don't know about the whole fuel tank.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
All right.
BFE is 2 and DFE is 2 more than 2. That's 4 feet above the ground.
We
Yeah,
can
one of
talk,
those special ladders,
talk like
little
Dr. Seuss,
giants
Yeah.
to fill your fuel tank.
Dr. Seuss land. All right, continuing. In zones AE and A1 through A30, where floodway limits have not been determined, development shall not be permitted unless it is demonstrated that the cumulative effect of proposed development, when combined with all other existing and anticipated encroachment, will not increase the base flood elevation more than 1 foot at any point within the community. The demonstration shall be supported by technical data that conforms to standard hydraulic engineering principles and certified by a registered professional engineer. So is that saying they can't build up the land more than 1 foot?
That is what it's saying. Will not increase the base flood elevation more than 1 foot.
I would think you'd want to increase the base flood elevation as much as you can. I don't know. Recreational
Can we
vehicles.
ask him to clarify?
Well,
E4?
well, if you increase the elevation, it blocks the water and it can't run freely, right? So that's why they want to increase the elevation of the land.
Recreational vehicles, equipment, boat trailers, portable toilets, construction trailers, and other travel trailers shall be currently registered, licensed, and ready for highway use, or be on site for fewer than 180 consecutive days, or meet the requirements for structures in section 5E12. Water supply systems shall be designed to minimize or eliminate infiltration of flood waters into the system. Sanitary sewage systems shall be designed to minimize or eliminate infiltration of flood waters into the system and discharges from the system into flood waters. On-site waste disposal systems shall be located to avoid impairment to them or contamination from them during flooding. The flood carrying capacity with any altered or relocated portion of any watercourse shall be maintained. Any alteration or relocation shall not result in any decrease of stream equilibrium. Bridges, culverts, and channel management activities, which by their nature shall be placed in or over the watercourse, shall have a stream alteration permit from the Agency of Natural Resources if required. Subdivisions and planned unit developments shall be accessible by dry land access. Structural standards. New or substantially improved structures shall have the lowest floor, including basement, elevated to or above the design flood elevation, 2 feet above base flood elevation. So there's your nice little
Yeah, there's what Eric already told us about.
definition that needs to move prior.
Okay, so I need to move that. Let's first talk about design flood.
This shall be documented in the proposed and as-built condition with FEMA elevation certificate. New non-residential structures and new non-residential structures and non-residential structures to be substantially improved, replaced, or that have incurred substantially damage shall meet the standards of section 5E12A or above, or have the lowest floor, including basement, together with attendant utility and sanitary facilities designed so that to at least 2 feet above base flood elevation, the structure is dry flood proofed, meaning watertight, with walls substantially impermeable to the passage of water and with structural components having the capability of resisting hydrostatic and hydrodynamic loads and effects of buoyancy. Wow.
So they can't float away?
Just a permit for dry flood proofing shall not be issued until a registered professional engineer or architect has reviewed the structural design specifications and plans and has certified that the design and proposed methods of construction are in accordance with the accepted standards of practice for meeting the provisions of this subsection. New substantially improved structures in zone AO shall have the lowest floor, including the basement, elevated above the highest adjacent grade, at least 2 feet above the depth number specified on the community's FIRM, or at least 3 feet if no depth number is specified. I don't know what an
I'm checking
FIRM
to
is.
see if there's a definition
Insurance.
for firm.
It's what?
Flood insurance rate now.
Flood insurance rate map,
Okay.
So basically the flood maps.
firm,
Insurance.
the glossary doesn't define that rate.
Critical facilities to be substantially improved shall have the lowest floor, including the basement, elevated or dry flood proofed at least 1 foot above elevation of the 0.2% annual flood height or 3 feet above base flood elevation, whichever is higher. Historic structures being substantially improved shall meet requirements of this bylaw other than the lowest floor elevation. Fully enclosed areas below grade on all sides, including below grade crawl spaces and basements, are prohibited. Fully enclosed areas below the lowest floor that are above grade, below the DFE and subject to flooding shall be solely used for parking vehicles, storage, or building access, and such conditions shall be clearly stated on any permits and be designed to automatically equalize hydrostatic flood forces on exterior walls by allowing for the entry and exit of floodwaters. Such design shall be certified by a registered professional engineer or architect. Or, so there's our stilts, or meet or exceed the following minimum criteria: a minimum of 2 openings on 2 walls having a total net area of not less than 1 square inch for every square foot of enclosed area subject to flooding shall be provided. The bottom of all openings shall be no higher than 1 foot above adjacent grade. Openings may be equipped with screens, louvers, valves, or other coverings or devices provided that they permit the automatic entry and exit of floodwaters. And a small accessory structure of 500 square feet or less need not be elevated to the base flood elevation if adequate flood openings are provided. The structure is placed on the site so as to offer the minimum resistance to the flow of floodwaters, and construction meets the criteria in section 5E2 above. So this is in structural standards for the flood hazard area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a way above. Did you want us to add something there?
No, I've always been asking the question, why can't we build on piers and have parking underneath? And this says that we can in the flood hazard area.
2 does.
Developments,
So I just want to add that much of this is very, very similar to what we have going now. A little bit
Okay.
reworded, a little bit reorganized, but extremely similar to what we have.
Yeah.
I was trying to compare back and forth, but it was a journey.
yep. So I mean, that's kind of always been my question of Brookhaven. F, development standards within the floodway. Within the floodway, no encroachments are prohibited except for the following, which also shall comply with section 5F.2 below. Changes to existing structures where the footprint is proposed to expand horizontally into the floodway less than 500 square feet. New encroachments relating to bridges, culverts, roads, stabilization projects, public utilities, functionally dependent uses, and river or floodplain restoration projects. New encroachments relating to health and safety measures such as replacement of pre-existing on-site septic and water supply systems, if no other practicable alternative is available. Within the floodway, all proposed new encroachments are required to provide a hydraulic analysis performed by a registered professional engineer in accordance with standard engineering practice, certifying that the proposed development will, A, not result in any increased flood levels during the occurrence of the base flood, not increase base flood velocities, and not increase any risk to surrounding properties, facilities, or structures from erosion or flooding. For development that will not result in any change in grade, the hydrologic and hydraulic analysis may be waived, where the applicant will provide pre- and post-development. Why can't I read that? Elevations. Oh my God, I'm brain fart. Demonstrating that there will be no change in grade and that the development will be adequately protected from scour.
Scour.
I guess so. Other provisions. The provisions of this bylaw shall not in any way impair or remove the necessity of compliance with any other local, state, or federal laws or regulations. Where this bylaw imposes greater restrictions than the provisions here shall take precedence. Validity and servability. If any portion of this bylaw is held unconstitutional or invalid by competent court, the remainder of this bylaw shall not be infected. These are just disclaimers.
Yeah.
And then administration, AO.
Okay, so
Do we
there's
want-
B.
Do we want to go over these?
No, we know what they
I
are.
think we could just kind of skim them. If anybody.
Maybe we need to read about applications though.
So yeah, applications. All applications for development shall include a site plan that depicts the proposed development, including water, flood hazard areas, and river corridor boundaries, the shortest horizontal distance from the proposed development to the top of bank, to the top of bank of any stream, any existing proposed drainage, any proposed fill, pre- and post-development grades, and the elevation of the proposed lowest floor as referenced to the same vertical datum as the elevation on the current flood insurance rate maps. A copy of the A&R permit navigator results summary. Action to referrals. Within 30 days of receipt of a compliance application, the AO shall issue or deny a permit in writing or refer to the DRB. Any application for proposed conditional use variance or appeal shall be referred by the AO to the DRB with accordance with 24 VSA 4448 and 4469. Any application regarding new construction, substantial improvement, development in a floodway, development in a river corridor, or variance shall be submitted by the AO to the State National Flood Insurance Program coordinator at the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources in accordance with 24 VSA 4424. The permit may be issued following receipt of comments from the agency or the expiration of 30 days from the date of the application was mailed to the agency, whichever is sooner. If the applicant is seeking a permit for the alteration or relocation of a water course, copies of the application shall be submitted by the AO to the adjacent communities. The river management engineer at Vermont Agency of Natural Resources and the Army Corps of Engineers. Public notice prior to issuance of a permit proposals needing conditional use review or consideration for variance or appeal must have a warned public hearing. Public notice of the hearing shall be provided by the AO at least 15 days prior to the date of the hearing by all the following. So pretty much gonna be all the same for
It's all DRB stuff.
DRB stuff.
Yep.
Decisions on applications that go to the DRB for review shall be made in accordance with 24 VSA 4464, including all findings of fact, conclusions, and conditions. The DRB shall consider comments from the A&R. No permit shall be issued by the AO for any use or structure which requires approval of the DRB until such approval has been obtained. Permits, where eligible, a permit shall be issued by the AO only in accordance with 24 VSA Chapter 117. Permits must state that all other necessary permits from the state and federal agencies must be obtained before work may begin. A notice of permit on a form prescribed by the municipality within view from the public right-of-way most nearly adjacent to the subject property must be posted until the appeals period has passed. Any appeals, man, I wish new building permits they actually did that. That'd be nice. I wouldn't miss them. The AO within 3 days of date of issuance of a permit shall deliver a copy of the permit to the listers of the municipality and shall post the permit in the town offices for a period of 15 days from the date of issuance. No permit shall take effect until the time for appeal, 15 days, has passed, or in the event that a notice appeal is properly filed. No such permit shall take effect until education of appeal by the DRB is complete and the time for taking an appeal to the environmental division of the Superior Court has passed without an appeal being taken. If an appeal is taken to the environmental division, the permit shall not take effect until the environmental division rules in accordance with 10 VSA 8504. Within 30 days after a permit has been issued or within 30 days of the issuance of any notice of violation, the appropriate municipal officer shall A, deliver the original or a legible copy of the permit or notice of violation or notice of permit generally in the form set forth in 24 VSA 1154C to the town clerk for recording as provided, and file a copy of that permit in the offices of the municipality in a location where all municipal, so all the same stuff for permits.
Yeah.
Expiration, permit shall remain valid for 2 years. Permit shall run with the land regardless of the owner. Structure shall be considered abandoned where the structure is no longer being maintained as habitable structure for a period of 5 years. Variances.
Regardless of evidence of intent to reestablish such use.
It's interesting. It sounds like they're trying to make it difficult for somebody to leave it in disrepair.
Yeah.
Well, to leave a half-built building up for 5 years, I
Right.
mean,
That's what I
I think
mean.
the intention is pretty much gone at that point.
Right.
You know, you leave your tools out there.
Basically a junkyard at that point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, I won't go there.
Yeah.
Variances may be granted in writing by the DRB only in accordance with all the criteria in 24 VSA 4469 after a public hearing noticed in accordance with 24 VSA 4464. If the proposed development is located within any flood hazard area, the proposal shall comply with 44 CFR 60.6. Any variance issued in the flood hazard area shall not increase flood heights and shall inform the applicant in writing over the signature of a community official that the issuance of a variance to construct a structure below the BFE increases to life and property and will result in increased flood insurance premiums up to amounts as high as $25 for $100 of coverage. Such notification shall be maintained with record of all various actions.
And has CFR been defined? What's CFR, Jared?
Can't call.
It's a statute. Well, never is, I don't know.
It's a legal text.
Yeah, it's a statute of some type.
Okay. Yes, it's cited 60.6.
Right.
Appeals of a permit decision, appeals from any decision or act of the AO in connection with this bylaw shall be made to the DRB as provided in 24 VHA 4465. Appeals from any decision of the DRB in connection shall be made to the Vermont Superior Court. Administrative responsibilities. The AO shall properly file and maintain a record of all permits and supporting documents. A FEMA elevation certificate for any new replacement or substantially improved buildings, not including accessory buildings in the flood hazard area. All flood proofing and other certification required under this regulation, and all decisions of the AO and DRB, and all supporting findings of fact, conclusions, and conditions. All certificates of occupancy and receipts as required for the determination of substantial improvement. Substantial improvement and substantial damage determinations. In the event of damage of any kind to a structure located within any flood hazard area, the AO shall determine if substantial damage occurred regardless of any intended repair at that time. In the review of any proposal for the repair or improvement of a structure located within any flood hazard area district, the AO shall determine if the proposal indicates substantial improvement. Substantial improvement or substantial damage determination shall be made in accordance with current FEMA and ANR guidance, or by procedure meeting FEMA standards and established by the town in accordance with 24 VSA 1972. Certificate of occupancy. A certificate of occupancy or CO is required for any new or substantially improved primary structure permitted under this bylaw. It shall be unlawful to use or occupy any structure within the areas affected in this bylaw until a CO is issued by the AO in accordance with 24 VSA 4449, stating that the structure conforms to the requirements of this bylaw. A certificate of occupancy is not required for structures that were built in compliance with bylaws at the time of construction and have not been improved since the adaptation of this bylaw.
Grandfather.
Yep. So I guess I'll just ask, so COs, so COs in other areas, do we have that where the building can't be occupied without one? Or is this different from other permits?
Technically, that's correct. Without a CO, the building should not be occupied.
Okay.
Technically. By the way, CFA's Code of Federal Regulations.
Is what? A federal regulation.
Code of Federal Regulations.
Code of Federal Regulations. The CRF is Code of Federal
CFR.
Regulations.
Code of Federal Regulations.
CFR. Let me just add that so we know what we're talking about. Where was it? Variances.
Just on the bottom of the
Under
page.
variances, I think.
It's under variances, like second sentence, 44 CFR 60.6.
So the CO is required when you apply for a permit, you trigger development.
Yep.
So if somebody built a house in 1905 and has had the family live there for 100 years, until they go to sell the house or something, they don't need a CO for it.
Code of Federal.
Sure.
Right.
What's the deterrence for that?
Regulations.
What's the deterrent?
What's the penalty? What happens if the homeowner occupies a dwelling without a CO?
They get,
Technically, yeah, they can be violated
be violated and fined days.
under like section, what is it, 260 or something?
Okay. Is that happening at all?
No, we give an opportunity for them to come forward and obtain their CO.
Okay.
We're not in the business of trying to violate everybody.
Right.
We want to help people. So if somebody triggers, like say, a permit and they need a CO, that's just an added thing to the permit. When we write a permit now, we always write CO required upon completion. But if it's a house that hasn't done anything in 100 years.
Oh, I understand that. I understand that. Yeah.
Can we go back to administrative responsibilities number 2? And it says, in the event of damage of any kind to a structure located within any flood hazard area, the AO shall determine if substantial damage occurred regardless of any intended repair at that time. And it just makes me wonder, when we have to do like tax abatements for damaged properties, is this something that we need to make sure is done before we do something like that? And or the town approves it for a FEMA buyout? That's what, to me, it seems to be talking about that kind of thing.
So the substantial, as far as an abatement, the way an abatement is right now legislatively is total loss or use of property.
Right.
It's usually prorated for a period of time. Right. So substantial improvement, you could have technically less than 50% damage of a building and still not be able to live in it. So we would look at, for abatement, we'd look at that a bit differently.
And that just changed.
Well, they're talking about, it hasn't changed yet.
New regs when we had the last abatement meeting, the new regs.
That sunsets April 15th. So that was for any abatement that's filed up April 15th, the state will refund the education portion of the amount.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
But once after April 15th, that bill, that's gone. That
but I thought there was new regs about 50%.
They're proposing new regulations that would make abatement qualifications very vague. So right now it's total loss or use of property. They want to open that up to things like financial hardship, loss of a spouse, stuff like that, which.
But it went from 100% to 50% in that stuff they gave us, right? It doesn't matter. It's just
No,
the tax abatement stuff.
I know. I just wonder.
The substantial. So that's what Jared. That's what they did after the flood. Is that they went around everywhere and said you're substantially damaged or you're not.
Right.
So regardless of what needs to be fixed, that determination had to be made for every property affected.
Okay, got it.
That's
what I wanted to know.
And then the select board had to approve anything that went for a FEMA buyout.
Yep, and so I mean, a FEMA buyout doesn't even necessarily have to be substantially damaged. That is a select board decision. You can apply for a FEMA buyout and not have been substantially damaged. So like an example, I think actually, the old Mojo's building, I don't know if it was that substantially damaged. Over 50%, and it got denied, but either way, one isn't a precursor to the other.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
So, all right, where else?
I don't know. This is really good bedtime reading,
Well, I'm understanding it better, hearing it read aloud.
No, because it slows it down and you can think about it and talk about it before we make any decisions.
Exactly.
Well, I think my biggest thing with this is just, we read the new stuff. Yeah. I think we should kind of, maybe on our own time, read the old document and see. It doesn't seem like it differs much. I mean, Jared, you've kind of looked at both of these, right? Or Rose?
I did. We just got this a few days ago. So, by next meeting, I will have compared everything pretty stringently.
Oh, thanks for doing that.
Yeah. It's a great interest to me, of course, because I do it every day.
Yeah.
Well, no,
right now.
And I would say that's definitely going to be a huge part of my decision is what's your preference? You're working in the office, so I would really appreciate that input, because if you read through both of these and you say you want parts of this and parts of that, then we have to start. Doing something different.
There's a couple that raised flags, like the addition of something up to 500 square feet in it or in a floodway or something, where normally that just would not happen, period.
Yep.
So there are things. And then there are a few things that make it sound like the floodplain manager doesn't even need to be involved. Exempt things.
Say, RV standard's going to work for Ludlow. So I don't think he was objectionable to change, adding those. I know that when we were talking about the preservation district and how much more we could allow people to develop, Judy had a question about green space, like there's a lot of green space in the preservation district, so I emailed, I know he's John Booker Campbell, I know he's out now, and there's a new person that's gonna take his job, but I emailed him about that question about green space, and these are protected in flood areas, and he said that wasn't part of our regulations, but that it was in other towns' regulations to protect green space.
It wasn't in our.
He said it wasn't in ours, but it could be. That's what he said. So I think that's something we should consider, protecting green spaces from flooding. Do we want to read the rest of this enforcement and stuff, or are we good? Because after that are the definitions. You did a great job reading it. Thank you, Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Ryan.
I had to count how many
Glad
times
to know I
I
can
said
still read.
24 VSA. Yeah.
It's good to know I can still read all that.
Yeah.
It's nice.
This isn't exactly second grade reading, but I'm used to. Okay, so are we all set with our preview of it and ready to move on? We have our questions. Could you read our questions to Jason just to see if you want to add anything? Please, Judy.
Well, I think some of them might have been resolved, but I have, what is channel management? Explain 1VB2, whatever it is. Anybody wants to find it.
BFE?
Roman numeral 1, 5, Roman numeral 5, B2.
Was that the $500 one?
I don't know, I just wrote that. I didn't write anything else.
Oh, base flood elevations and floodway limits.
I think we resolved that. Anyway,
Yeah, I think we got that one.
is this a model plan approved by FEMA?
That's a good question.
Explain DE River Corridor Performance Standard. DE. River Corridor Performance Standard.
What number was it? Like what Roman numeral did it start at?
I think it might have been
One? Oh, no, one is just the statutory authorization part. I know we had the question about that.
DE. Okay, so
Let's put down the question about the $500 that Ryan had.
you'll have to give me a
Yeah,
reference.
no, I gotta find it.
Let's find this one first. So we got
Okay.
it. So I'm in development review, river corridors, so it's gonna be under that, which is
Okay, so say what it was again?
development standards within river corridor. It's D. Now I gotta go backwards and find what it starts. I think it's 1G. Nope, it's 4. Okay, so it's 4D. So 4D, 3. Oh, maybe it was a 3 and I can't read my own writing. 4D3. So it's River Corridor Performance Standard. And I wrote that out. River Corridor. It's page 5 here.
Okay.
I'll put that in parentheses, page 5. And then the next one was VD2C.
Wait, what was that one? Did you do that first one again?
River Corridor Performance Standard, page 5.
Okay, so number 3. All of number 3?
It's D3. Okay.
It's not D3, there's an ABC after.
Look at D is at the top of the page. D3.
Development standards. Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm confused because,
You're on the wrong.
no, I printed out my own copy at home.
Oh, okay.
So it's on a different page at home. Over there, that's why I'm sorry.
Okay. Then we have interior improvements that cost less than $500. That's what Ryan wanted.
Yeah, I just don't know if that $500 is a real Because that, why even say that? That's gonna be any improvement.
We could just say
More than
explain or,
$500.
where was it though? So it was
Page 7, it's D2C.
D2C. I'll put the page number on there too. Page 7.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Then we have E, same, I think.
Development of standards within the flood hazard area.
Yep. And it says, explain development standards within a flood hazard area. Are number 3 storage tanks and vents, the part about can they be placed underground? Just to,
Because basically it's saying
we're just questioning
they
that.
gotta go up 4 feet in this
Right.
definition.
Right. And then E4, clarify what this means. So,
Thank you.
there you go.
Okay, so I will get those questions to him and an email and include them in the minutes, obviously. Anybody else have anything on this, on the flood section that we're talking about today? Can we move on the agenda? Okay, next on our agenda, we have next month's agenda planning. Back to flood hazard regulations, make sure Jason is here. The only thing I was waiting on was, he said Rose had authorized him being here. I sent her an email about it, but she already agreed to, that we were gonna work on this, so I didn't see any problem there. The other thing, energy chapter I put on here, I don't know if we'll get to it next month, probably not, but as the chairman of the planning commission, you get all the regionals' new plans come to you. And there was one I got from Cavendish, and they had a whole energy chapter, and it was amazing. We don't even have one in village zoning, and the one we have in town zoning needs to be beefed up. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys and talk about whether we wanted to include that or not.
What is it called, please?
An energy chapter. And it was about alternative energies.
And that's like a very old document that finally made its way through that. So.
Can you go to the mic, Noah?
The Cavendish Enhanced Energy Plan, that's a pretty old document that the state wanted to pass. It's probably over 5 years old,
Okay.
like working towards getting that. So it may be something that you've looked at in the past. But the biggest point of that was to give substantial deference to the town when energy projects came in. And without that, it was Act 250 and the state stuff, but it gave the town a little control. But it may be something you've looked at years ago.
Yeah, maybe I'll look it up. I didn't actually recognize it as something I looked at years ago, but anyway, I thought we could take a look at that. Other business. Do we have any other board member comments?
Yeah, I have a question just because I'm not aware, but do we have like junk ordinances or anything like that written into our bylaws at all that you're aware of? Are there?
Want to find it in village zoning?
There's only a definition in the village section of the regulations. There is no ordinance in the village pertaining to junk yards or junk. There's a definition for junk yard, but that's it.
Yeah.
So I was going to add to your comment when it becomes my turn.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But right now, there's nothing.
No,
We need you to answer the board member's comment.
is that potentially something we could just I don't want to spend much time on it, but briefly just look at and just see what's actually in the document right now and whether or not.
Sure, let's do that. Also, I don't think we have the biggest problem as Chester, but oh man, Chester's cutting back.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly.
And I know it's impossible to enforce and all that. I know it's very difficult, but it's just noticing things growing. That's all I'll say.
I have as well. Agreed.
Also, somebody from the state contacted me. They had contacted Rose and Jared, and they sent it along to me to talk about pollution, guidelines about pollution, and I agreed to attend a Zoom with her tomorrow at 2:15. I don't know if anybody else wants to attend it with me, but it's like half an hour long. Listen to what she has to say. Rose said it sounded like something that the planning commission would be more apt to need to know about than her office.
I will be able
You would be able to?
I won't be able to.
Okay, does anybody want to? Okay, I'll do it solo. So I don't know if anything will come of that, but I'm gonna do that tomorrow.
Terry is representing us.
I guess pollution is, and junkyards may go hand in hand at times. Any citizen comments? Mr. Allen, you've been completely quiet in the last few meetings.
I'd like to expand on Ryan's concern about junk yards. I feel that there should be an ordinance that is in effect through all of our districts pertaining to junkyards or what is defined as a junkyard or something similar. That's it. I think
I
we should
totally agree.
to move forward with that. Second comment that I have is I was thinking about clarifying section, I think 550, I think it was the noise ordinance. It just seems a little general and it's difficult for some people to understand. So I think that we should look into expanding that section a little further.
And that's section 515?
I believe so, yeah.
It refers to decibels.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's issues with, it says, when something's measured at 60 dB.
Yeah.
What does that really mean? So there's different
decibels.
issues, there's frequencies, there's distance, so it's very arbitrary. So I thought that maybe there could be just a little bit more educational verbiage in there for people.
Okay, thank you. Noah, you got anything for us? New selectman, Ludlow, Vermont. Congratulations. I think I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yay. Anyone opposed? We are adjourned.